Back then, smoking on planes was completely normal. And even though airlines had smoking and non-smoking sections, smoke still permeated everywhere, enveloping the entire cabin.
Cigarettes was like y'all marijuana to us today.
World dreams come true. I can grow without.
Welcome back. And I told y'all wasn't going to miss this one. I was scrolling and I found a video I think we all gonna like. 25 things that are illegal now but were normal in the 1970s. You know, y'all always talk about how things was different and how y'all had this and how y'all had that. Well, let's go ahead and see the things that y'all had that are now illegal. And I wonder, do y'all miss it? Let me know in the comments. If you're new to the channel, I'm DtaeNoDinero, and I love to go back and check out old school videos as well as new school as well. But let's go ahead and get into this video. I don't want to talk y'all heads off. Nobody like a long intro. All right, y'all, let's get to this video. Hey, I do want to give a special shout out to my newest subscribers. We just had 3,169, but now we got 3,197. Shout out to y'all. Hey, appreciate it. Hey, genuinely, if y'all like the video, just hit the like button. I don't want to feel like I'm begging y'all to hit the like button. Sometimes I feel like I'm coming across begging y'all to hit the like button. That make me feel uncomfortable. But let's get to this video, y'all. I know y'all ready.
20 shocking things that were normal in the 70s, but are banned today. Welcome back to a trip down memory lane to the 1970s. An era of freedom and risks, where many things that were perfectly normal back then are now considered illegal. Do you remember a time when riding bikes without helmets, or even seeing kids buy cigarettes for their parents, was commonplace? From seemingly harmless games to drastically different social rules, what changed to make our world so different today? Join us as we explore 20 activities that were once an indispensable part of daily life in the 70s, but today they could land you in serious trouble or even put your life in danger. Get ready to feel nostalgic and surprised by the things that have faded into the past. Playing on train tracks. Let's kick things off with a childhood memory many of us still hold: playing on train tracks. Back in the 70s, train tracks weren't just a shortcut to school or home. They were an exciting adventure zone. Kids often treated them as a vast playground, walking on the rails, trying to balance on the shiny steel beams, or simply cutting across the station platform to get where they wanted. Some even placed coins on the tracks to see them flattened by speeding trains. A curious but very common mischief. The attitude towards rail safety back then was incredibly relaxed. Hardly anyone considered the potential dangers. But times have changed. Today, railway companies across the US have enforced strict trespassing laws for track areas. Continuous safety campaigns warn of serious dangers, as modern trains move faster, quieter, and require a much longer braking distance to stop than before. Stepping onto track property without authorization is not only a life-threatening act, but also leads to hefty fines and severe legal consequences. From a childhood game, it's now a forbidden and high-risk activity. Clackers toys.
Hey, before we get too far about the railroad tracks, I'm not going to be talking too long on every part, first and foremost. But I do want to say this. The only reason why we don't see kids playing on railroad tracks anymore is because now kids have tablets and cell phones and gizmos and gadgets that we can't even think, that we never even thought were going to be a real thing in the past. We drew cell phones and didn't even know they were going to be a real thing when we were kids. And I'm not even as old as y'all. I remember vividly playing on the railroad tracks. It was fun.
Speaking of risky childhood games, do you remember Clackers? This toy was all the rage in the 70s, thrilling yet surprisingly dangerous. It consisted of two heavy, shiny acrylic balls attached to a string. Your job was to swing them up and down rapidly to make them smack together with a satisfying clack.
Okay.
The faster you swung, the louder the noise, and the higher the chance you'd get hit in the hand, or worse, the face. Clackers were truly exciting, but they also posed risks. If you lost control, these balls could hit you hard in the face, causing bruises or even shatter into sharp pieces, leading to serious injuries. Due to increasing reports of injuries, clackers were completely banned in many schools and public places. As noted in other sources, some places even banned them because of the injuries they caused. Eventually, manufacturers were forced to redesign clackers with softer, safer materials to prevent accidents. What was once a test of patience, timing, and coordination is now a prime example of how toy safety has become a priority. Lawn darts. Continuing with 70s toys that are now gone, do you remember lawn darts? This was a popular backyard game in the 70s, especially at summer barbecues. The rules were simple. You'd throw large, sharp-tipped metal darts towards a circular target placed on the lawn. The feeling of throwing accurately and hearing that thud as the dart hit the ground was truly exhilarating. However, the terrifying truth was that these darts were not only heavy, but also sharp enough to pierce the ground, and sometimes people. Just one wrong throw or a child accidentally walking into the playing area could lead to serious injury or even death. Tragic accidents led parents and authorities to speak out. Eventually, by the late 1980s, the US government completely banned the sale and use of sharp-tipped lawn darts. Today, if you find a set of lawn darts, they'll have rounded tips, made of safer, weighted material for throwing, but no longer pose the threat of the original version. Easy Bake Oven.
Hold on now.
Moving from outdoor toys to an indoor childhood icon, the Easy Bake Oven.
Remember
In
that?
the 70s, there was no feeling quite like being able to bake your own little cakes and cookies with this magical oven. It was every kid's dream come true. And the best part? It worked with just a regular light bulb to cook your treats. As another source also highlights, the Easy Bake Oven worked with just a regular light bulb to cook treats, and the thrill was in the process of making it yourself. You'd tear open packets of cake mix, stir them up, and pop the tiny pan inside the oven, then sit back and wait, watching as the light bulb did its thing. While the results weren't always the tastiest, sometimes they were a bit interesting. That didn't matter. The real thrill was in the process and the joy of saying, "I made this." However, that very light bulb posed a big risk. It got very hot, often reaching temperatures above 175 degrees Celsius, 350 degrees Fahrenheit, putting children at risk of severe burns if they accidentally touched the inside of the oven. Reports of injuries increased, with some children even suffering second-degree burns. So, by the early 2000s, modern Easy Bake Ovens replaced the light bulb with safer, enclosed heating elements. This toy still brings back fond memories, but looking back, it's crazy how it once posed a serious burn risk. Children could buy cigarettes. Now, let's talk about something that today's generation might find unimaginable. In the 70s, children could freely buy cigarettes. Smoking was incredibly common back then, to the point where it was normal for a child to walk into a grocery store and buy a pack of cigarettes for their parents. Sometimes they'd carry a small piece of paper with a handwritten note from their parents. Or sometimes they didn't even need any proof of age. Vending machines were also everywhere, from restaurants to public areas, allowing anyone with spare change to buy cigarettes. Today, the situation has changed dramatically. Strict age regulations, rigorous ID checks, and public smoking bans are widely enforced. A child attempting to buy cigarettes now is illegal and will result in heavy penalties. Cigarette vending machines have become a relic of the past, only appearing in nostalgic films. This shift shows how significantly public health awareness has improved.
I think that is extremely strange that y'all had vending machines publicly with cigarettes in it. Did they have beer in it too? I'm almost absolutely sure there was a vending machine somewhere with a beer in it. I know for sure. Y'all were wild. Y'all were wild.
Smoking areas. Continuing on the topic of cigarettes, another thing that was normal in the 70s but has now completely vanished is high school smoking areas. Yes, you heard that right. Many high schools back then had separate designated areas where students could openly smoke between classes.
Look at y'all.
Teens could legally puff away on their cigarettes without any opposition. Even many teachers smoked on school grounds, contributing to a rather smoky atmosphere. However, when public health awareness and the harms of secondhand smoke increased, attitudes began to change. By the late 1980s, schools quickly started eliminating these smoking areas. And by the 1990s, the idea of students and teachers openly smoking on school grounds became truly shocking and virtually non-existent. This is a clear testament to how society has adapted and prioritized the health of the younger generation. Of all the things from the 70s we've looked at so far, which one surprised you the most to learn it was once normal? Let us know in the comments.
Me too.
Cigarette ads on TV. And speaking of the prevalence of cigarettes in the 70s, we can't forget cigarette ads on TV. Images of rugged cowboys riding horses, stylish celebrities, or elegant men leisurely smoking flooded television channels. These ads were designed to make smoking appear attractive, fashionable, and even a symbol of success. Cigarettes were promoted as an indispensable part of life, from relaxing moments to social gatherings. However, health concerns grew. As scientific studies began to clearly demonstrate the link between smoking and serious diseases, pressure from the public and health organizations led to a major crackdown. In 1971, the U.S. government issued a complete ban on cigarette advertising on TV and radio. Although the tobacco industry later adapted by shifting advertising to magazines, sponsoring sporting events, and appearing in Hollywood films, this change marked a significant milestone in the fight against tobacco, completely altering the media landscape and how we access health information. Smoking on airplanes. If you ever flew in the 70s, you'll instantly remember the sight of airplane cabins often thick with cigarette smoke. Back then, smoking on planes was completely normal, and even though airlines had smoking and non-smoking sections, smoke still permeated everywhere, enveloping the entire cabin.
Cigarettes was like, y'all, marijuana to us today. No, like let's be honest here. I mean, the whole uproar about kids smoking marijuana. Tobacco was like the drug of choice back then. Y'all smoked everywhere. Where didn't y'all smoke at?
Trays were integrated right into every armrest, ready to serve passengers' needs. You could easily see the person next to you enjoying a Ashtrays were integrated right into every armrest, ready to serve passengers' needs. You could easily see the person next to you enjoying a cigarette, without much thought for those around them. However, as the dangers of secondhand smoke became clearer, pressure from the public and health organizations significantly increased. People began to realize that inhaling others' smoke also caused serious health harm. In response to these concerns, in 1988, smoking was banned on short domestic flights in the U.S. And by 2000, this regulation was further tightened. Smoking was completely banned on all flights in the U.S., regardless of short or long, domestic or international. This was a major change, leading to cleaner air and protecting the health of millions of passengers. Loose seatbelt laws.
What?
Moving to road safety, something we take for granted today wasn't so in the 70s. Extremely loose seatbelt laws. Back then, using a seatbelt was primarily a personal choice rather than a mandatory safety requirement. Many drivers believed seatbelts caused restrictions or even danger in certain accident situations. Even more notably, many cars of that era didn't even have seatbelts in the back seats, and children were often allowed to move freely in the car, with no child seats or restraints whatsoever. The image of a child standing on the front seat or sitting on an adult's lap while the car was moving was not uncommon. However, with the increase in traffic accidents and research on the importance of seatbelts, things began to change. New York became the first state to enact a mandatory seatbelt law in 1984.
Shout out to New York.
Subsequently, studies by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, confirmed that seatbelts reduced the risk of death by 45% for front seat occupants and 60% for rear seat occupants. By the 1990s, seatbelt laws became standard across the U.S. This was a critical change that saved millions of lives and reshaped our driving habits. Minimal child car seat regulations. Following up on traffic safety,
Shout out to the creator and the pictures he's finding. He started off a topic with some of the wildest images. Did y'all see how he started off the last topic? Seatbelt regulations? Man, the guy had a seatbelt wrapped around his neck. I ain't know if he was trying to save himself or kill himself. Can I say that on YouTube? I apologize, YouTube, if I said something wrong. But that car seat was crazy. What are we looking at? What are we looking at? What is that saving and protecting? That's just stopping a baby from moving, literally. And he's in the... Let me start the video.
minimal child car seat regulations. Following up on traffic safety, in the 70s, Child car seat laws were virtually non-existent. Most parents back then simply relied on standard vehicle seatbelts, or worse, held children on their laps while traveling by car. Although child car seats existed, they were primarily designed for convenience rather than safety. No strict crash test standards were applied to these seats, meaning they didn't truly protect children in the event of an accident. However, a groundbreaking 1985 study by NHTSA completely changed this perception. The study revealed a heartbreaking truth. Car accidents were the leading cause of death for children aged 1 to 4.
Wow.
This statistic was shocking and spurred a strong wave of changes in attitudes and laws. As a result, today, every state across the U.S. has enacted mandatory child safety seat laws. These seats must meet strict safety standards and undergo thorough crash testing, ensuring maximum safety for our youngest passengers. Drunk driving with high BAC limits. Another serious issue related to traffic safety in the 70s was the shockingly widespread practice of drinking and driving. The legal blood alcohol content BAC limits back then were also much looser than today. In many states, you could legally drive with a BAC of 0.10% or higher, a level considered extremely dangerous today. Having a few drinks and then driving oneself home was not uncommon, and awareness of the risks of this behavior was very limited. However, the consequences of drunk driving became unacceptable, especially with the increase in fatal accidents. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, a powerful organization was formed. MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. MAD and other advocacy groups fought tirelessly to enact stricter DUI, driving under the influence laws. As a result, by the mid-1980s, most states had lowered the legal BAC limit to 0.08%. This fight completely changed how we view driving after drinking, transforming it from an acceptable behavior into a serious crime. Minimal airport security. Now, imagine a world where air travel was extremely comfortable and simple. That's exactly what airport security was like in the 70s. No long security lines, no X-ray scanners, and you didn't have to take off your shoes or have liquid restrictions. Passengers could go straight to the gate, meeting family and friends right in the boarding area. Cockpit doors weren't locked mid-flight. Sometimes pilots even left them open. The feeling of flying back then was truly free and unconstrained. However, this lax security came at a steep price with a sharp increase in hijackings, over 200 recorded in 1972 alone. But it was the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 that changed everything forever. After that tragedy, the Aviation and Transportation Security Act was passed, leading to the establishment of the TSA, Transportation Security Administration. The TSA implemented unprecedented strict security measures, from rigorous baggage checks to full body scans, making the air travel experience completely different from before. What from the 70s do you think should never have been banned? Or is there anything you wish could go back to being normal? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
I think they made a good decision to ban everything.
18. Going back to major legal and social changes, in the 70s, here's an interesting fact many today might not know. The legal drinking age in many states was 18. This came after the 26th Amendment was ratified in 1971, lowering the voting age from 21 to 18. The logic at the time was that if you were old enough to vote, serve in the military, and fight for your country, you should also be allowed to buy and consume alcohol.
I have to agree. It makes complete sense to me.
So, seeing 18-year-olds freely buying beer and liquor was not unusual. However, this change led to severe, unforeseen consequences. Drunk driving accidents skyrocketed. Studies showed alcohol played a role in over 60% of traffic fatalities. Given the situation, in 1984, the U.S. Congress passed the National Minimum Drinking Age Act, forcing states to raise the drinking age to 21 by threatening to cut federal highway funding. By 1988, all 50 states had adopted the higher drinking age, a decision that, while controversial at first, proved effective in reducing accidents and protecting community safety. Child labor. Another aspect of the 70s that we find hard to accept today is the presence of child labor. Although the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, had been in place since 1938, child labor laws were still relatively lax. It wasn't unusual for children to work, especially in agriculture, family businesses, or low-income households. Many parents back then believed that having a job from a young age helped build character, responsibility, and discipline in their children. Children often engaged in manual labor, helped out in shops, or worked in fields. However, with societal development, concerns about the dangers of child labor arose, particularly children's exposure to hazardous machinery or toxic chemicals. In 1976, the Child Labor Amendment was introduced, and it wasn't until 1989 that the United Nations adopted the Convention on the Rights of the Child, laying the foundation for protecting children's rights globally. Currently, the U.S. has tightened regulations under FLSA, prohibiting children from working in hazardous conditions and limiting their working hours. This has helped protect millions of children from potential job-related risks. Owning exotic
I have to say, that is extremely odd. I don't understand why anybody would want children working unless they are looking to save some money, I guess, you know? Well, I just think that is odd. Those pictures probably were just over-exaggerated. I don't think child labor was like that back in the day. But if it was, and any of you that I'm talking to, I apologize. I don't think no child should have to be working, especially in no measure like that. But I can understand why so many elders can be cranky at times. Sometimes y'all can be cranky, and you know this.
pets without permits. You might be surprised to learn that in the 70s, owning unusual exotic pets without permits was very common and largely unregulated. People could easily buy a unique iguana, a colorful macaw, or even a large boa constrictor from pet stores with little oversight. Origin documentation or care regulations were almost non-existent, and most importantly, no special permit was needed to own these animals.
It's a neat bird.
However, as the exotic pet trade boomed, concerns about public safety, animal welfare, and ecological impact also increased. There were instances of escaped or abandoned pets, sometimes becoming invasive species that negatively affected native ecosystems. To address this, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service introduced regulations in 1980. And by the late 1990s and early 2000s, most states had enacted laws requiring permits to own exotic pets, ensuring that their ownership is more strictly controlled and safer for both animals and communities. Red dye number 2. Shifting to food and health in the 70s, a food additive caused major concern: red dye number 2. This synthetic dye was widely used to create a vibrant red color in many foods and beverages. However, studies began to suggest a link between this dye and potential health risks, although conclusions weren't clear. Public anxiety grew. Interestingly, even M&Ms, despite never using red dye number 2, they used red number 40, decided to stop producing red M&Ms in 1976 to avoid causing customer concern. Ultimately, to ensure consumer safety, the U.S. officially banned red dye number 2 in 1976. Red M&Ms later returned in 1987 when red number 40 was deemed safe.
Okay.
This is a classic example of how public perception, though sometimes not entirely based on absolute scientific truth, can significantly shape business decisions and government regulations. Cyclamate sweetener. Another food additive that was very common in the 60s and 70s but later banned is cyclamates. This artificial sweetener was 30 times sweeter than sugar and calorie-free, making it an ideal ingredient in diet sodas and sugar-free products.
Okay.
With the boom in diet trends, cyclamates quickly became ubiquitous in the American diet. However, in 1969, major concerns arose. A study indicated that extremely high doses of cyclamates could cause bladder tumors in test mice. Although this dosage was much higher than human consumption levels, the fear of a link to cancer prompted the U.S. government to act immediately. The U.S. banned this sweetener in 1969, and it was officially removed from the market in 1970. Interestingly, while the U.S. banned it, many other countries like Canada and European nations still permit the use of cyclamates, showing differences in global food safety regulations. Leaded
Interesting.
gasoline. Now let's talk about a major environmental change we often overlook, but which had far-reaching effects. Leaded gasoline. In the 70s, almost every gas station across the US sold leaded gasoline, a fuel additive that had been used for decades to boost engine performance and make cars run smoother. The distinctive smell of vehicle exhaust back then was also linked to the presence of lead in the air. However, a serious health problem emerged. When cars burned leaded fuel, they released toxic lead particles into the air. Scientific studies began linking lead exposure to severe health issues in humans, especially children, causing developmental delays and brain damage. Given this clear evidence, by the mid-1970s, the US government acted, gradually phasing leaded gasoline out of the market. By the 1990s, leaded gasoline had almost completely disappeared, marking a significant victory for public health and the environment. Lead paint. And if you thought lead was only in gasoline, remember lead-based paint. In the 70s, lead-based paint was incredibly common, used to paint homes, schools, playground equipment, toys, and even baby cribs. It was favored for its high durability, good color retention, and beautiful gloss. The image of brightly colored, durable homes was often due to this type of paint. However, just like leaded gasoline, research on lead poisoning from paint increased, showing that children exposed to lead dust or peeling paint could suffer serious health problems such as developmental delays, organ damage, and various other illnesses. This was a hidden threat within our own homes. Therefore, in 1978, lead-based paint was banned for use in residences. Although the ban was enacted, the reality is that millions of older homes from those decades still contain this paint, requiring safe handling measures during renovations to protect the health of future generations. Flame retardants. Something else that was normal but is now strictly limited is flame retardants. In the 70s, these chemicals were ubiquitous in our daily lives, from children's sleepwear, furniture, to everyday clothing. Their purpose was to prevent fires, slow down combustion, and enhance the safety of items. People back then believed this was a necessary protective measure. However, what few realized at the time were the potential dangers of these very chemicals. Studies gradually showed that flame retardants could be absorbed through the skin or respiratory tract, and began linking them to serious health issues like hormone disruption and cancer.
Wow.
This led to the introduction of stricter regulations and the banning of many types of flame retardants in the 2000s. Notably, old furniture, especially from the 70s and 80s, can still contain high levels of these toxic chemicals, showing the long-lasting impact of past industrial decisions. Selling raw milk, a controversial 70s memory. Do you remember the taste of fresh, full-cream milk poured directly from a glass bottle and touted for countless health benefits? In the 1970s, buying raw milk, milk that hadn't been pasteurized, was completely normal, even sought after for its characteristic creamy texture and rumored golden health benefits. Farmers and small dairies often sold their products directly to consumers, with no restrictions whatsoever on this practice. It was a time when natural and unprocessed was highly valued, and many believed it was the optimal source of nutrition. However, behind the appealing facade and health beliefs, a frightening hidden risk was growing. Concerns about foodborne illnesses began to emerge, directly linked to consuming unpasteurized milk. We're talking about serious pathogens like Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria, which could cause severe infection outbreaks. By the 1980s, the alarm bells rang louder than ever. Health officials began publicly warning about serious health risks, particularly the danger of infection outbreaks from raw milk. A crucial turning point came in 1987 when the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, issued a regulation mandating pasteurization for all interstate milk sales. Subsequently, individual states quickly followed suit, implementing increasingly strict regulations to protect their citizens. Today, the story of raw milk remains a controversial topic. Some states still allow its sale under extremely strict conditions, while many others have completely banned it. Looking back, it's hard to believe that a beverage once considered a staple for many families has now become such a complex and contentious legal issue. This is a clear testament to how profoundly food safety awareness and regulations have changed over the decades.
Yeah.
What do you think about raw milk still being legally sold in some places today? Is it an unnecessary risk or a freedom of choice? Candy cigarettes. Finally, if you grew up in the 1970s, you surely remember a sweet treat that was an indispensable part of childhood: candy cigarettes. They were widely available in every grocery store, designed with incredible detail to mimic real cigarettes exactly.
Y'all love y'all some cigarettes. I said it earlier. Y'all got so much to say about people smoking nowadays. Y'all loved y'all some smoking, didn't y'all, back in the 1970s?
You'd see them with crisp white paper wrappers and especially a red tip, just like a lit cigarette. Some even had a puff of powdered sugar, creating an illusionary cloud of smoke when kids blew into them, making
Getting
the
them
pretend
ready.
play even more realistic. It was endless fun, mimicking how adults held, flicked, and smoked candy cigarettes with cool flair. At the time, most parents didn't bat an eye at these candies. Why? Because smoking was incredibly prevalent back then. You could see smokers everywhere, on TV with glamorous ads for the Marlboro Man or Joe Camel, in restaurants, even on airplanes. Even more surprisingly, high schools even had designated smoking areas for students, and teachers often smoked at their desks. So it was understandable that children wanted to imitate adults. However, as awareness of the health risks of smoking grew, that's when concerns about candy cigarettes began to surface. Critics argued that these candy sticks normalized smoking behavior in children, potentially leading them to real smoking as they grew up. By the late 20th century, bans and packaging changes were implemented. Many countries restricted the sale of candy cigarettes or required them to be renamed candy sticks and remove all cigarette-like designs. Today, it's hard to imagine a candy so closely tied to the image of cigarettes being widely sold to children. But in the 70s, it was simply a normal snack on the candy shelf. Times have changed, and so have the rules. What was once the norm, an indispensable part of daily life in the 1970s, is now part of the past, even illegal. We hope this trip down memory lane has brought you memorable memories and deep insights into a unique, colorful, but also risky decade. Do you remember any other crazy things from the 70s that are now banned? Share them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this nostalgic journey, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next exciting videos, and share this video with your friends to relive those beautiful memories together. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on our next time travel adventures.
Well, y'all, I thought that was a great video. Can't deny that at all. I am interested to know you guys' comments. Please let us know please let me know in the comments as well. What do you think about the video? What do you miss? Do you think things should have changed? Do you think things shouldn't have changed? I mean, from seatbelt regulations to alcohol levels that you can drink and drive at, from car seats, clackers, arrowheads. I mean, you name it. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a long list of things that changed still. If you did genuinely enjoy the video, just go ahead and hit the like button. That way more people can come to the channel and check us out as well. I think more young people need to see things like this so they can know exactly what life was like for you back in the past. That's why I enjoy going back and watching these videos, because I like to listen to people tell me the stories of what happened back in the past. If any of these things do bring trauma, I send my sincere condolences to you. But I just do want to let you know that there's stuff like this that paved the way for people like us, and I definitely appreciate it. But I enjoyed this overall in general, absolutely. If you enjoyed it like I did, make sure you hit the like button. And like I said before, y'all, make sure y'all got your notification bell turned on, because you're not going to want to miss what I got next. Peace. Let's get it. Silly.
Show me I should love you. You complete me, but I might